Now let's talk about functions, which is a subset of mappings. So a function is a rule that maps a single input number, maps, to one other single output number. Okay, so this is a subset of mappings. So it's only allowed if for every x, if you like, you have a single y. And this is how you write it. So we say f of x, so f, small f, brackets x, equals whatever your rule is that you're using to transform each x into a new number. So for example, x plus 1. And sometimes we have several functions that we're discussing at once. So then we'd have, for example, g of x, h of x, etc. And so that's the notation that we're dealing with. So the deal is that for each input number we have one single output number, only one of them. So if we look at the two different mappings we looked at in the previous video, so we've got x that gives x plus 1, and if you remember the graph, it looks a bit like this. So this is a function because each input gives a single output. But then if we go to x to plus or minus x, if you remember the graph looks a bit like this. So this is not a function. Because there are two outputs for each input. Right. So that's just some stuff to think about. And now let's talk about a function that we already know. And that we've discussed at some length, and that is the equation of a straight line. So we could think of that as a function, couldn't we? So that is y equals mx plus c. So in our exam, we could think of that of f of x is mx plus c. We could just write it with that in that way instead. So for example, we could say that y is equal to 2x minus 1/3, just, this is a random equation. So f of x is 2x minus 1/3. Right, so let's just work out a couple of combinations and then we can draw the graph. So this should end up as a single straight line. And functions don't always have to end up like that, like a straight line, as we will see in a minute. But in this case, we're going to start simple. So if x is transformed to give 2x minus 1/3, then that means if x is equal to 1, then the function gives us 5/3. If x is equal to 2, then the function gives us 11/3. If x is equal to minus 4, then we get minus 25/3, etc. These are just a few examples. Okay, so here's x, this is our input, and here is our y is our output, or 2x minus 1/3. Okay, so let's just draw the graph. So if we've got x is equal to 1, then y is equal to 5/3, which is nearly 2, so that is about here. If x is 2, then y is 11/3, which is somewhere here, and minus 4, that gives us minus 25/3, which is down here somewhere. So again, this gives us a nice straight line. So this is something we already know, but we can think of it as a function if we like.